Hey everybody, it's Talon again, and today we're going to be going through one of the runs we did for the Mists of Tirna Scithe and just talking about how I tank it, what my thoughts are as I go through, how I utilize and plan for my cooldowns, kiting, and all of that. So before we get started though, we're going to talk about the route that we took, the route that I kind of like to take. This is taken from Dratnos's routes. For the most part, I like a lot of his routes. Sometimes we'll modify them just a little bit based on our comp and what we can do and what we feel comfortable with. But this is a great one for that. So what this route allows us to do is get Prideful on the first boss. We'll get Prideful somewhere in the middle of the maze just because of the randomness of, the directions you take and the count that you get. And then we'll get Prideful somewhere around here near the end. And then what it allows us to do then is if we haven't gotten 100%, we can then run past the boss and pick up either this pack and get Prideful, or then this one and get Prideful and go straight into the boss with Prideful there. So a couple of things as I think about this too, with my tanking and my defensives is that one of the main mobs that we want to focus on and watch out for as tanks is the Drust Soul Cleaver. So we can go over this real quick. This one guy, he'll have a Soul Split, which makes us take increased damage, or it takes 20% increased damage for 8 seconds. And then he can also cast on himself Hand of Thros, which makes him do, has a 30% attack speed buff, and it will heal him for all of his successful melee attacks upon us. So these guys hurt a lot. We want to make sure and plan out that when we're going up these guys that we respect the damage that they do, that we either plan our defenses around it, or defensives and offensive CDs for our DPS and healers, and we're communicating with that. So that's one of the things we want to get into, and let's just go ahead and get into the rest of the video. All right, as we're getting ready, we have a Night Fae in our group. What this allows us to do is to use this skip here to the left and then go straight into these Spike Claws. If you do not have this skip, what you'll have to end up doing is taking a pack over here which has 2 Soul Cleavers in it. And as we talked about, the Soul Cleavers do a lot of damage, and if I'm having to have CDs to live this and then also CDs to live this one, it's going to be kind of tough. And so it's great to skip this pack here and just go into these guys. So what we want to do then is grab these guys, not commit a lot of CDs to this. I've communicated with my healer that, I want to save some CDs for that. We wait a little bit for this 3-pack to pat this way before we start going in, because I have pulled, extra with a shield on accident. So, we're going in here. She'll drop her Spirit Link Totem for that. We have Darkness dropped, and we just get them and obviously kite with the Sanguine that's being dropped. So after we do this, we know that this is the pack we're going to do. Now, we hero this pack, and maybe that's not super necessary on a Tyrant week, because the first boss actually does take a lot of time. Even with Prideful, you probably still want to have hero for that boss. And it's probably more and more likely now that me running with our mage is a druid now, so we can use the trees as a defensive. It's a great defensive for us to have, a great utility that keeps me alive a lot. But we don't have that right now, so what I'm going to do is, we're going to hero this pack. I'm going to use one of my big defenses early, and we're just going to focus on these Soul Cleavers, get them down quick. And they do go down relatively quick here. And then also we watch out for the Harvest Essence that will do an AoE to everybody and then heal everybody. And don't mind me getting disoriented and playing bad right here. Avoid that disorient. Don't be like me. And obviously kiting back a little bit through here. Hey, look, I dodged that one. And then that's the end. We'll go ahead and skip through us killing this villager here and getting him down. Now, the one thing that enables us to get Prideful right on the first boss is that we skip this pack here. And so we have our Demon Hunter. He's going to imprison this Harvester, and then we can just walk by to the right. You can also do this with a Monk Paralysis, and they bring a piece it away. Or you can use stealth invisibility pots here. But if you aren't able to do that, then you're going to have to deal with these guys, which has a Soul Cleaver, and one of the big guys here, which is also a very heavy hitting mob, has a Thrash at 50 when it gets to 50% health. So it's a pretty dangerous pack as well. So if you can skip this, it's going to be great, and it's also going to give you Prideful right on the last boss. All right, then we come up to this pack. This pack also has Soul Cleavers in it. So there's a lot here. What I've done is, I've saved my bubble taunt here so that I can live through this, but I'm going to use my small defensive first, keep going, and then as it gets lower, I'll use my other defensive. And again, everybody's focusing the Soul Cleavers to get them down while trying to get as many Spirit Bolts down so they're not trucking me with magic damage, but also watching out for the Harvest Essence. Another thing you can do is when your defenses are down, it's always good to kite and stay out of melee range so you're just not getting hit. But let your defenses reset, let the healer be able to get you back up while the DPS just kill the mobs. And so you have a little bit of room here, but you can also, if you have your Night Fae, maybe he goes over real early and opens that door, and that gives you tons of room in that little room right there to kite around as well. So I'd come back just a little bit, make sure they don't walk through that Sanguine, and then we'll go ahead and kite away. It's always good just to be mindful of like where you want to kite and when you're going to kite, just where you're going to go. Have that path. This is a nice open area, so it's good, but sometimes, pathways are a little short, a little small, you don't have a lot to run into without pulling other mobs. So just be very mindful, always thinking ahead of where you're going to kite. So we're going to go ahead and skip through this as we grab our buffs. We're going to go to the two bow breakers that are here. Now, every time they jump into the air, they're going to cast these little brambles on the ground. They'll slow you and then do ticking damage as you get into them. The best way to avoid this is just watch them. As soon as they jump into the air, you move. Moving away, you won't get caught in the brambles, you won't get slowed, and you won't take the extra damage. And at 50, like I said, 50% health, they start thrashing. It is quicker if you can just DPS them down evenly, but you're going to take thrashes at the same time. And so you have to really know if you're going to be able to take that damage. Maybe you pop defensives, we use darkness there. The healer has to be ready. People can, again, use their defensives to live through that. But maybe more and more on as you get higher and higher keys as you go through, and you're doing a fortified week. That damage is going to hurt a lot, and you're going to want to split them up. So focus one down on those weeks probably. And for me, I'm just trying to keep my defenses rolling, doing that as well, trying to take as much pressure off of the healer as I can. And then we have Pride. So we'll skip through as we do this Pride, and we'll go straight into the first boss. Let me back up just a little bit. Alright, this boss is just going to spam Spirit Bolt a lot, and so what we're going to do is I just call an interrupt order for this just to keep the damage as low as possible and do it. Have people get the interrupts going. Watch out for the disorient. And then the other thing as tanks too is our positioning here can really help the melee especially, but those who are DPSing to stay out of the swirls, and once the swirls start sticking on the ground and it getting filled up, we're going to want to more and more keep everybody in a place that's safe. Once you damage the ad enough, it's going to stun Ingra, and Ingra's going to take 200% extra damage. So that's a good place to hero if you have saved your hero for the boss. If Ingra is up too long, it will cast a buff on himself, which makes him take a lot less damage, and so you're going to have to focus Droman right here, the little ad, to then stun him back and get rid of that debuff. And then if you don't do that in time as well, he'll cast Repulsive Visage, which will cause everyone to run in fear. And so all these things we want to avoid to be able to just DPS down Droman as much as possible. Other than that, there's not a ton of damage that comes from this boss. Generally, it's just active mitigation here. You're not really committing, major defensive cooldowns here, just because I want to have them set up, ready to go for the maze that we're going to go through here, especially the first pull. So that boss goes down pretty easy. I'm going to go through here. So as we're coming in here, the first thing you want to do, for us, we have our healer do the maze, but you can watch the second boss right here. See, she goes to the right, which means that that's the way to go. So you can always watch which way she goes and not even have to do, the guessing game and see which one it is. Always going to be the way she goes. And the other thing that we do is this pack over here, we can pull through the wall and add them, because just doing these two mobs here isn't as efficient on time. And so being able to add everything here, you're going to gather everything up, pop a defensive. Maybe once that's down, you'll go call for trees. Because you'll have built up enough aggro at this time, and then once trees drop, if you don't want to commit another cooldown, you can just start kiting. Yeah, but then also through this maze, what we do is we focus all the guardians and the defenders down, because they're the ones that are going to stop melee in particular, but they're going to stop DPS with the Spear Flurry and with the Bucking Rampage. And so we try to focus those down while watching out for two casts from the Shaper and the Tender. The Shaper and the Tender is the only ones that are going to cast that you can interrupt. One of them is going to be a heal, Nourish the Forest, and the other one is Bramblethorn Coat, which will put a shield on one of the mobs, and then if that's broken, everybody in your party is rooted, which can be bad, you know, if Bucking Rampage or a Spear Flurry is going out, so you really want to watch out for that. And so as we've been doing these, our healer is the one that's, you know, looking through and finding out which path to take. And so throughout this whole maze too, what's good for us as tanks is just to be rolling our defenses, to take as much of that, you know, healing responsibility away so they can go around and find out which way we need to go. I mean, they're still going to be healing, obviously, but as much help as we can give them, it'll really help this maze go a lot faster. So we'll skip through here. We do get Prideful in the middle of one of these packs. So just keep an eye on your percentage. We'll go ahead and do that. And through this, another pack. And then this pack, we encounter one of the mini bosses. Now, in these, you have the possibility of reaching 3 different mini bosses. And what's great about 2 of them is that all 3 of them have an ability that hurts really bad. But for 2 of them, the Mistveil Night Blossom and then the Frog one, you can just outrange these abilities and not take any damage. Especially this one, the Triple Bite, is really bad. It gives you like 3 stacks of a poison that hurts a lot. But as long as you just run out of range before the cast happens, you avoid the damage completely. Now, you can do this with Tongue Lashing for the Frog as well. It's just a frontal, so if you just run out of that, you're fine. And, you know, the DPS have to also watch out that they're not in front of it or they'll still get hit. But the dragon, if you run out with that ability, instead of just not casting it, it'll actually just cast it on the closest person. And so that most likely is going to one-shot a DPS. So you just got to stay in there, you know, and have your defenses rolling for that, because that armor debuff, that big hit, really does hurt. Make sure if that one you're utilizing, you know, the Pool of Radiance that heals, you know, take the boss out of it and then turn around and step yourself in it, but watch out for the frontal that comes out. That's also a good place for Hero on Fortified Weeks, because Hero it does help the second boss go faster if you need to, but chances are it's going to be up already during this maze, and it's more efficient to use it on one of those. It's safer to use it on one of those. All you're going to do on the second boss if you hero is just push one of the guessing game phases faster. You're always going to get one of those unless you're doing it right at the end and try to burst past through the last phase, but I just feel like it's more efficient to just do it on that mini boss if you do it, or somewhere in here. And that way you have hero up for the last boss. So another Pride in here, and then I believe we go to the boss. So actually we get Pride with the boss, which works out. So yeah, for this boss, one of the main things we're watching out for is Patty Cake, right? And Patty Cake is an interrupt that only the tank can interrupt. And if it goes through, it's going to one-shot you. You're pretty much just going to die through that, unless you have major defensives up. So there, we interrupt that. And the other thing we want to watch out for is when that Fox comes out for freeze tag, we need to move the boss away if it's close to us, so that everybody can just stay in and keep DPSing. And then finally, for the guessing game, what I want to do is I want to be able to position myself close enough to the thing that we need to DPS, the one that's picked. But not too close. So right here, I was way too close. I want to be close enough to where my DPS can see the lines, but not too close to where they can't dodge them if like all 4 of the arrows go through that, which that's what happened there, and that was my bad. That was bad positioning on my part. So we want to make sure that that's not positioned that close, but they still need to be able to see if the lines are coming for them. And then also too, don't get caught out, you know, being too far away from the boss during that guessing game part, when Patty Cake comes out, and then you just get smacked. Other than that, the boss is fairly simple. There are high damage phases, like a lot of damage going out during the guessing game. So do your best to, you know, maybe that's when you pop a defensive so that you can keep your health up while allowing the healer to get everybody else, focus on everybody else while you have yourself healthy. So just skip through here to the end of this boss. And there we have it. So this next little part, there's really only one cast we want to watch out for and one mob that we want to watch out for. So the cast comes from, I skipped through here just a little bit. Oh yeah, don't jump too far and land on a branch and die like I have. It's pretty bad. The Staghorn. The Staghorn is the one that's going to do the cast. Now there's only 2 casts, and he doesn't cast immediately after being interrupted. And so what I'll do is I'll always assign, you know, one of my interrupters, hey, you're the first cast, and then the other person you're the second, and just interrupt immediately, because there's one that's going to be a shield that happens at the end of the cast, and then one that's a channeled heal. This one right here, stimulate regeneration. You don't want people to wait and figure out, okay, is this the one I interrupt early or is this the one I interrupt late? Just interrupt them both as soon as you see them, and you'll be fine. It's not like it's going to make it cast faster or, you know, come back at a different time where your interrupts are not up. Just get them done as quick as you can. So as soon as we're done here, we're going to have these. Now you're going to go from what looks like a big pack to a small pack to a big pack. But the big packs, the ones with a lot of numbers, just have a lot of larvae in them. They die relatively quickly. So a bunch of staghorns here, make sure you just mark them and have the interrupt order set here. And the only other one you're going to have to watch out for, the big, or the mob that you need to watch out for, is the spine maw reavers, the ones that were flying around. They'll come in a second here. They're not particularly dangerous for us, but they can do a lot of damage to everybody else, the rest of the party. They'll dash to a random party member, and then they'll just do a lot of damage and leave a poison behind. And so on fortified weeks, on higher keys, this is definitely going to do a lot of damage, and so people need to make sure that they're DPSing them down. The healer's ready for the damage that's going to come through, and people are using defensives if they get low, health pots, those kind of things to keep themselves healthy. So we'll skip through another pack with the staghorn in it, pretty easy. Just make sure you're keeping your defenses rolling, just using them to keep the damage low, help out your healers. And then we get prideful here. All right, another pack with a bunch of larvae, makes it look bigger than it is. So we're gonna dispatch this. Let's skip forward just a little bit, this last 4-pack. And you can see that now we're at the boss room, and we still have a few more percentage to go. So this is the beauty of this route that Dratnos has come up with. You know, we can then just start adding on extra packs. Now the one with this one though, there's a Gorger, another one that looks big but isn't big, and the Staghorn. The Staghorn's the one we interrupt. I think I marked the wrong one, so make sure Staghorn's the one you interrupt. Oh, there you go, I switched it. The one thing that we've started to do is, because if we stand here in DPS, sometimes the Reavers fly overhead, and you can see their shadows right there. They might pull, depending. I mean, and so what we've been going to do is just pull this pack a little bit into the boss room to avoid them as much as possible and not add them on. Again, like the only time you really want to get the Reavers is that first time that we had to get them for count. Other than that, it's better just to skip them. All right, we got Pride here right at the end. That's our 100%. Oh yeah, I forgot. In this one, we did end up actually getting the Reavers like I talked about. Like, see how they're flying right overhead and somehow they get pulled. So we just have to watch out for that. What's funny is we actually just take them into the boss and just go for it. It made it a little hectic, but it worked out. So here there's 2 casts that we want to watch out for. This Parasitic Pacification that will mind control somebody if the cast goes off, and you have to DPS them down to 50% of the health to break them out of the mind control. So make sure you just assign an interrupt to that. One 15-second interrupt is plenty. And then the other one is going to be after this consumption, or this consume, you break through the shield, and then you can interrupt consume. Now you do have the option of just let them cast it and you interrupt it super late. Because all it's doing is, yes, it is creating a little bit of hectic, you know, all these circles going around that you have to dodge. But what you're doing then is delaying and not having to deal with the casts that, you know, bring in all the ads, casts that bring in the mind link, the mind control, all of those things don't come during that. So it's a give and take there. We tend to leave it up for a little while and just dodge the circles and go for there. And then the other thing here too is when these larvae come out, they're going to fixate one player and then just go for them. And so what I try to do is, you know, I bopped right here. I bopped the mage here that had that one so that they're able to just stand still and we can just DPS them down. We'll also, you know, throw out and plan out throwing a stun totem. You know, our DH will stun, keep them together so they can just stay grouped up. So that they don't have to kite. And so that part was really scary. I couldn't see where the lines were because he turned and had his tail and had to just guess. But yeah, we just want to keep those as much as possible and not let the people have to kite for all of the little ads that come out. So other than that, just, you know, make sure you're rolling through your defensives, staying healthy, and that's it. That's the fight. But yeah, right on, guys. Well, you know, that's how I go through the Mists of Tirna Scithe. Let me know if you guys have any questions, comments. Maybe there's tips and tricks that you've thought of that I've missed. You know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to come by and chat and say hi on Twitch. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday morning and Friday night. Love to hear from you. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you guys next time.